this notion of trying to locate an art center within community was very much part of what we were trying to do, even though we were not consciously trying to do that. And I recall that one of the first spaces that we looked at was the Adams Arcade. But we also looked at spaces in Kilimani, we looked at spaces in Peponi. But we ended up on Dunga Road, on the edge of the industrial area. It was an old, dilapidated structure, which when it rained was flooding all the time. You know, when you flush the toilet, everything would sort of rise up towards you. The studios were always flooded. You couldn't perform because of the noise. I think another challenge was the location, the industrial area. It was a mess. We had audiences calling us during the day, asking whether we'd have security, asking whether they should drive in convoy, because there was a sense that the industrial area was not safe. And so again, we had to worry around working through that particular perception as we tried to create an art center. It wasn't easy, but we had to, and we started with the support of funders from outside who gave us a chance to begin to think about creating offices for artists, studios for visual artists, rehearsal spaces, performance areas. When we started to think about programming, we began to think about what was already existing that needed to be enhanced, and also what was new that perhaps would be exciting to develop, and maybe also what was missing. We thought, let's focus on 3 art forms. We focused on music, we focused on visual arts, and we focused on contemporary dance. With music, I think the space was already quite vibrant. Hip-hop was happening, benga was continuing, Afrofusion. But we decided to pick a form of music that was probably not typical, and this was classical music. So we sort of teamed up with the conservatoire, and we would support their efforts to train young violinists, young pianists, young vocalists, and to try and see how to bring audiences to classical music. But as we began to roll out programming and think about how to develop the sector, I think there were other gaps that were clearly evident. The whole idea of the business of the arts, the other value levels that the sector provides. It's not just entertainment and recreation or aesthetics or art for art's sake, but there's the whole aspect of contributing to the economy. Programs that would give artists business skills, develop them as entrepreneurs, people who could earn livelihoods and support themselves and support families through their art. When we started, we didn't even know what was happening in Uganda or in Tanzania, let alone internationally. And one of the things that we tried to do was to try and see how to expand the networks that artists have, to find, to meet, and to see how that would enrich local creative expression. And so within the region, the GoDown began a program that we called the East African Arts Summit. This was a coming together of regional practitioners to share best practice, to share how they worked creatively, to build networks, to build friendships, to build businesses. Reaching out to audiences is something that an art center and an artist is always trying to do effectively and successfully. And I think it became apparent to us quite early on that the art center is not the only space that an audience member, somebody who loves the art, will engage with and find arts. And so we began to think about how to use the wider Nairobi space really as a stage for sharing creativity and art with audiences. Unainihu, I think, is one of our sort of flagship activities in that particular direction. That we found was actually an excellent way to begin to bring art and community sort of organically and naturally together.